So if you think the twos are terrible, or if you're having a tough time looking past your toddler's challenging behaviour, stick around because I'm going to cover some ways in which you can start seeing the twos a little bit differently. So let's go. So when our little one hits 2 years old, they've more than likely found their feet and they've definitely found their voice. Our toddlers are busy developing a sense of who they are, exploring anything and everything around them, and they're getting curious. They're also experiencing some big emotions they aren't yet able to communicate or regulate yet. So if we couple this with the need and the desire to explore and do absolutely everything themselves, then our little ones can quickly become overwhelmed, frustrated, angry and upset. And because they don't have the language or the ability to regulate these big emotions, this can lead to an emotional outburst. Now I think it's these frequent emotional outbursts at this age that is giving the twos the label of terrible. Now, there's no denying that this age is challenging, it absolutely is, but I think when we're not conscious of what's developmentally age appropriate for our little ones at this age, then we don't have the ability to set realistic expectations. And when we aren't setting realistic expectations for our little one, expectations that are developmentally age appropriate, then as parents we're going to be continually left frustrated, upset and even angry at times. So on that note, when we think about it, the only thing really terrible about the twos is the ridiculously high expectations we as parents put on our little ones. Now, I'm not saying this makes it easier by any stretch, but if we're able to change our perception of our child's challenging behaviour and start thinking about their behaviour in this way, then we're able to start thinking about exactly what they're going through during those challenging moments. And when you bundle this in with their developing brain, their need to explore, to be curious, to be independent, then their often seemingly irrational behaviour really does start to make sense. So here are 4 things to remain conscious of if you're struggling with the twos or having a particularly challenging day. So number 1, and that's that your little one is experiencing incredible brain development. 2-year-olds undergo major motor, emotional, intellectual and social changes at this age. Now at this age our little ones can interpret and understand much more speech than they can actually express. This is something that leads to a lot of those challenging behaviours and emotions that sometimes as parents we find difficult to deal with. Now I remember at this age our little one would sometimes pause when he was trying to communicate something, and he would become quickly overwhelmed if he didn't have the words or the vocabulary to express or communicate what he wanted. And this obviously led to him becoming frustrated, overwhelmed, and it would often lead to an emotional meltdown. Now I'm sure some of you are going through this at the moment with your toddlers, and the problem is it escalates very quickly because the emotional outburst begins. They obviously don't have the development to regulate their emotions and also the language to communicate the feelings they're experiencing. So often in these moments our little ones just react in the only way they know how, which can often seem destructive, aggressive. Certainly if they're screaming, lashing out or hitting, it can become really difficult. Now of course this is where boundaries come in. So at this age our little ones battle with having a reliance on their parents and having a desire to be independent and in control. You know, of course they want to do things on their own, but they're quickly learning that there are certain rules and boundaries for what acceptable behaviour looks like, and as their parents it's on us to model what that looks like for them. So as our little one figures out where the boundaries and where the limits are for their behaviour, it's perfectly normal for them to test the limits and push the boundaries. Quite often we see this as naughty or negative behaviour, but our little one needs to learn. They need to interact with the world around them, and it's on us as their parents to set those consistent boundaries for them. So the biggest learning I've had as a parent is to know that we can absolutely set a boundary, but also acknowledge our little ones' upset and frustration when they're not happy with the boundary that we've set. Because of course, as they're figuring all of this out, our boundaries can lead to frustration, which can lead to our little one feeling out of control because they have a desire to be in control of absolutely everything. And of course, these can lead to emotional outbursts. So number 2, and that's that your little one has a burning desire to explore their world. Now, our toddlers want to explore the world around them. They're curious about absolutely everything, but naturally, as parents, we have a protective instinct and we want to direct them away from potentially harmful and dangerous situations. Now, the problem here is our child's desire to explore doesn't really match up with our protective instinct as parents. So obviously when we hold them back, they get frustrated, and obviously this leads to an emotional outburst. Now, my biggest tip for parents during these emotional outbursts is try to hold back the anger if it does make you angry, to try and meet them with a level of calm, and just appreciate that our child is getting swept up by emotions they can't yet control. And I think when we do this, we've got more chance of meeting them with that level of calm, modeling what emotional regulation looks like, teaching them that we can control our emotions, but just hold that space to appreciate it's going to take time for our child to get there, to learn how to control and name these emotions, and it's on us as their parent to model what that looks like for them. Now, I think my biggest tip for parents here is to do your best to nurture that curiosity. Naturally, we want to keep them away from danger. You know, if we're cooking, we want to keep them maybe in the playroom where it's safe and they've got their toys. But before saying no, just find that pause and try and come up with creative ways to involve them in the activity they're interested in. So if you're cooking, for example, is there a way that they can sit safely on the worktop while you give them some dried pasta and a spoon to play with, or a plastic knife and some fruit that they can chop up? And you'll find by creating habits to involve them in those day-to-day activities, you'll be able to turn these potentially stressful situations into fun, engaging activities for your little one. I remember when our little one was at this age, he really loved it when I was putting out the recycling. So at first I would quickly try and get the recycling out there as quick as I could before he noticed what I was doing. But then, you know, I paused and I thought to myself, you know, why not make this a fun activity? If he's really interested in it, then obviously we're not going to put it out quickly, but are there ways in which I can cultivate healthy habits around the recycling so he can learn? So I would put aside smaller boxes, I would break up the card into smaller chunks that he could walk outside with me to do the recycling. So obviously it took a 5-minute task and it turned that into a 45-minute activity, but I didn't look at it as putting out the recycling, I just looked at it as an engaging activity with my little one. So for me, obviously, if I had the expectation that, you know, if my child was going to help me, it was going to take longer and it was going to be more challenging, if I just took a step back and appreciated, actually, let's forget about the recycling, let's just turn this into a fun activity. Other examples include helping with the gardening, so we bought him a little gardening set around this age. Going back to the cooking, we bought him a chef's outfit, which was really cool. You know, we got him involved with putting away the shopping. All of these mundane day-to-day tasks that you assume our child wouldn't want to be involved with, actually they allowed our little one to thrive, and obviously turned a potential stressful situation into a positive experience. Number 3, and that's your child is developing their independence. Now, your child's growing independence will show itself in a number of ways around this age. So getting dressed, eating, the desire to go to the toilet, playing, drawing. You'll have days where your child will want to do some, if not all of these things on their own. And you'll have days where your child will lean on you for absolutely everything. And I think this can lead to days being unpredictable and also challenging. You know, I think we've all had these challenging days. Maybe we're wanting to leave the house and our little one will refuse to leave the house until they've done the zip up on their coat, or maybe done the shoelaces up on their shoes. And we know deep down that they can't do these things yet, so we want to help them, we want to interject, but we know if we do, it will just escalate the situation. So we need to remember 3 things here: that we need to allow our children to make mistakes at this age. This is very important. We need to appreciate that they're developing the ability of self-control, and they're also developing self-awareness. And I think it's the point about mistakes that is really important, because that's something that we struggle with often as parents. You know, we want to help our child, we don't want them to get things wrong, but the reality is our toddlers will make mistakes every single day, and it's a very important part of their development. So if we can pause before maybe helping them or interjecting, take a step back and just allow them to make mistakes, allow them to ask us for help if they need it, and this will provide our little ones with lots of little windows of opportunity to learn. Number 4, and it's that your little one is processing huge emotions that they can't yet regulate. Our toddlers need us to model what emotional regulation looks like. We need to get comfortable with naming their feelings and acknowledging their emotions. This is really important for our little ones. Naturally, as parents, we might want to react quickly to these emotional outbursts, these meltdowns and tantrums by saying things like, "Can you please stop crying? It really isn't a big deal." Because to us, whatever they're upset or frustrated about might not seem like a big deal, but to them, having their cereal in a blue bowl instead of a red bowl really is the end of the world. But of course, it's not ideal and it can seem a little bit irrational, but we need to work with our child so that they're able to better regulate these emotions when they're feeling them in the future. And it's not going to be a quick fix, it's not going to be overnight, but if we can meet them consistently with a level of calm by naming their emotions, then we can definitely work with them to boost their emotional vocabulary, get them comfortable with communicating these big feelings and emotions in a non-destructive way, and let them know that all feelings are valid. Because I think traditionally we've been told to punish and isolate our little ones when they're having an emotional outburst, a meltdown or a tantrum, something along the lines of, you go and stand over there, you think about what you've done, and when you're ready to be nice, you come back. But what are we actually teaching our little one in this moment? We're asking them to stand in the corner until they're ready to be nice. But as human beings, we're not nice all of the time. We experience all of those emotions, the frustration, the anger, the upset, just as our little ones do. I guess the only difference is we've had, or me, 34 years experience on how to deal with these big emotions, probably something I'm still working on now. So how on earth can I expect my little one to quickly figure out how to deal with those emotions while standing over in the corner? And if we just put it back on ourselves, the fact is our calming presence will de-escalate our little one's stress response in those moments. And it's when that stress response is de-escalated and our little one comes back down to a level of calm, are we able to actually engage in conversation with them? Because when they're at the height of the meltdown, they're unable to access the part of the brain that is responsible for logical thinking. So if we're able to work with them to bring them back to a level of calm, and then when they're at the level of calm, we can engage in conversation about what appropriate behaviour looks like. We can talk to them about the fact that we can't lash out and we can't communicate our emotions through hitting or screaming. Then we capture these opportunities as teaching moments. And obviously we don't always have to do this, because it might be that our little one has simply become overwhelmed, and if that's the fact, obviously we don't need to teach anything other than that our calming presence is how we regulate our emotions. So the fact is, as our child grows, that they'll learn this is how we regulate our emotions in a constructive way. Now, if you struggle with keeping your cool with your child and you find yourself losing it regularly, I have a video which I'll put above on what to do when we lose it. So I've got 5 steps on how we can model repair with our little ones. A massive thanks for making it this far. I hope you found some value in this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a comment and say hi. Please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next Wednesday with another parenting video.